Hi everyone, this is Emily with Moms with Cameras, and I'm excited to bring you another installment of How'd You Do That, which is where I walk you through how I created a specific image, and today it's going to be this Sweet Seniors. So as usual, I'm going to give you my the equipment that I used and the camera settings that I used, but today I want to talk specifically about light and how I achieved this radiant, really beautiful, clean look in the light in the image. I get a lot of questions about lighting, a lot of questions about on-location lighting, and so this is a great example of how to create that clean, beautiful look out of the studio. So the first thing I'm going to do is share my equipment. It was I used a Canon 5D Mark II, which is what I shoot with almost all the time these days, and I used my 28-70 lens, the 2.8 lens, and I photographed this image at ISO 160 at 2.8, which is pretty wide open for me. Usually if I'm using a lens that's a 2.8 lens, then I'll shoot at 3.5 or 4 for sharpness, but in this image I photographed at 2.8. And I also shot at 1/160th of a second, so that was my set of settings for this particular image. What I want to share most about is how I lit this image, and this image actually was photographed with all natural light. And what I want to talk about specifically is how you can get this really clean look, especially in the eyes, how you can have this really clean look in the eyes when you're photographing on location. So let me talk first about kind of our skulls and what they're like and why that matters when we're lighting. And what I want to talk about is our eyes, like our eye sockets, are naturally recessed. If you look at a skull, our eyes are further back than our forehead. Our forehead protrudes over our eyes. And that's something important to kind of think about when you're shooting, because if you have your light, your main source of light, coming from the top, if it's coming from overhead, like the sun out, at 1 p.m. or something like that, if that light's coming from the top, what's going to happen is it's going to hit the head, and as it hits that forehead, the forehead is going to block the light. It's functioning kind of like a little mini umbrella, and you're going to have very dark eyes. So if you've ever taken an image and you're looking at it and you're like, rats, I cannot see their eyeballs to save my life, that is quite possibly why. Like if you're getting those real dark shadows under here and the eyes have no light in them, that is probably why you're having that overhead light coming in and you don't have enough light coming from the front. So an instructor a long time ago told me to, when in doubt, think about having the light source come in as if the person had a unicorn horn. And so where that unicorn horn would point is where you would want the light source coming from. So kind of from in front, but up a little bit. And so that made great sense to me. I thought, wow, thank you for that visual. And that's what I've used ever since if I'm, not specifically lighting for some kind of pattern or anything like that. So then what that means is I'm looking for places where my light, when it's hitting my subject, is going to be coming in that kind of unicorn position where it's coming from there. So here what I did is I needed to find a place that was going to block that overhead light. I don't want it coming in from above. And so in this specific instance, she is in this kind of alcove. There's a wall here. There's a wall to the back here. There's a wall to her left that's out of camera. You can't see it. And then above her head, this is the most important thing, above her head, maybe 12, 16 feet up, is a ceiling to this space. And so what that means is that the light cannot come in from overhead. It is forced to come from the front. And across the street from us were buildings, but then above that was this big blue open sky, and so that's where the light is coming from. So it's coming in, you can tell it's coming from above a bit, because if you look at the catch lights in her eyes, they're up high, they're not down low. If it's down low, it's coming in from below, which gives a really kind of gross ghost story type of look, like if you think of somebody holding a flashlight underneath their face. It's not a pretty lighting pattern. And you can also see it's a tiny bit directional, but not really. I mean, they're like maybe at the 11 o'clock position in her eyes. So it's not, I don't have a super highlight side and a super shadow side, but there's some, you can see it a little bit. But the important thing is that I blocked that overhead light, and that light was forced to come in from the front and forced to come up from, a little bit higher. So how can you do this? Like, let's say, for example, if you're in a field, like if you're just standing in a field and you don't have anything to block the overhead light, what can you do? And one of my favorite strategies out there is to either use a mat board, like you can just truck out a 30 by 40 mat board. You can get one totally on the cheap at your local craft store, and it can be just a black mat board, and you hold that, have your assistant or have her mom or anybody like that hold it up over her head and then shoot. And then the other thing is you can seat your subject on the ground and have them tilt their chin up to you a bit, and that automatically turns the plane, the mask of the face, the front of the face, up towards where the light is coming from, and that helps. Instead of the light coming from above, it is now coming from the front of the face. So I hope that that helped you guys with the lighting. The most important thing to know is once you have that pretty lighting pattern on the face, to make sure to nail your exposure. And so you're going to want to take a manual reading. You can use the manual setting in your camera, or my preferred method, I like to use a actual light meter. That gives a really accurate reading. It's a great tool to have. They're not terribly expensive. And so you want to make sure you nail your exposure, and between the pretty light pattern where the light's coming from and that really good exposure, you're going to get this really nice, clean result every time. If you just stumbled upon this video, this is Emily from Moms with Cameras, and it's moms-with-cameras.com. If you have questions about this post, I'd love to hear them. You can either send me an email using the contact form at the top of the page, so it's just that moms-with-cameras.com, and then you'll look for the contact at the top of the page. You can send a tweet to @momswithcameras, or on Facebook, you'll just look for us. You'll go on Facebook, and in that search box, just type in Moms with Cameras, and you'll find us. Thanks so much. I hope this was helpful for you. Have an awesome day.